Hey, it's Eric from ESE Prep. Today we're going to go over the October 2019 SAT test, the no calculator section. So upload the file. It's called John Bergson, just the name of the main character in the first reading passage. And turn to section 3, and we'll get started in 1 second. All right, so first question is, what's the solution of the equation 2x plus 3 equals 7? Okay, basic algebra. When I want to solve something, I just move whatever I want to the other side, just change the sign. So I say 2x equals 7 minus 3, 2x equals 4, and x equals 2. Okay, so answer choice C is correct. For question number 2, it says, which of the following expressions is equivalent to the expression above? 2x cubed plus 3x times x cubed minus 2x. Okay, so the easiest thing to do would be just start to multiply this expression out. First term is 2x cubed times x cubed, right? So that's just 2. When you multiply bases or similar bases, the same bases with exponents, you just add the exponent. So it's 2x to the 6th. And the only answer choice that has that as the first term is C. So the answer for number 2 is C. Number 3 is a graph. It says the graph of y equals f of x shown on the xy plane. What's the value of f of 0? So f of 0 just simply means, if you're looking at the graph, what's the value of y when x is 0? And you can see, if you look at the graph, crosses around -8. Okay, so the answer choice is A for question number 3. Question number 4, long word problem. The city transit bus line charges $2 for an adult. So right away, I'm going to write down $2 goes with A. And then it says, and $1 for a child. And $1 goes with child. Okay, during a certain 4-hour shift, the bus driver collects $1,171 from 617 riders. Okay, so 617 riders. Which of the following systems of equations could be used to determine the number of adult riders and the number of child riders during this 4-hour shift? Okay, so 2 has to go with A, 1 has to go with C, right? And the total number, A plus C, has to equal 617. So the easiest thing is just look at this in 2 parts. A plus C has to equal 617. The only answer choice that has that is D. But also notice in D, the other equation is 2A, right, plus C equals 1,171, which also makes sense because 2 goes with A, 1 goes with C. All right, so just do those in 2 parts, and it's pretty straightforward. All right, next question is question about similar triangles. Tricky question, just got to read it and look at it carefully. It says you've got 2 similar triangles. Which of the following statements is not true? Okay, so it says the measure of angle E, right? You've got 2 triangles, and I'll draw these here. Sorry for the bad triangles. but it says this is angle E, and this is angle B. When you have similar triangles, the similar sides are congruent, right? Or the similar angles are congruent. It's the ratios of the sides that are similar are always the same, but the angles are always the of the congruent angles are congruent. So in other words, B and E, that angle would be the same. It wouldn't be, measure angle E would not be 3 times as great as B. So that is the correct answer. All right, but careful reading there, and it looks weird. That's why it's a little tricky. Number 6, in the xy plane, the y coordinate of the y-intercept of the graph of function f is c. Which of the following must be equal to c? Okay, so just a lot of words there, but basically they're just, what they're talking about is when you have a graph, okay, and you've got x and y, and typically you've got, could be quadratic, but typically you got a linear function. But just read the words carefully. It says the y coordinate of the y-intercept, okay? Typically we would just say the y-intercept, okay? Okay, so it's just that value of y at the y-intercept. Kind of synonymous, but they say it multiple times just to make it confusing. And it's f of 0 because at that point, the x value here is 0. Okay, so it's just understanding the nomenclature. At x equals 0, you have the y coordinate of the y-intercept. All right, just again, confusing wording, but just pointing out something very simple. Question number 7, the length of a rectangular tile is 4 times the width. So when as I'm reading this, length, I write down equals 4W, okay? If the area of the tile is 144 square inches, area equals 144, okay? What is the width of the tile? So we know just area equals length times width. All right, in this case, we know the length is 4W. So we got 4W times W equals 144. Okay, just multiply these two together. We have 4W squared equals 144. Divide both sides by 4, and you get W equals 36, or W squared equals 36. So W is equal to 6. Answer choice A. All right. Number 8. Question for number 8. It says, which of the following is the graph of the equation y minus 5x equals negative 6? So we got y minus 5x equals negative 6. And they're all linear, functions. So we want to rearrange this in slope-intercept form. Y equals 5x minus 6. Okay, it's important to note, not so much in this question, but in the test in general, you always got to look carefully at the axis, the horizontal and vertical axis. And in this case, you see 10, 10, 10, 10. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Each one of those lines is worth 2. Okay, in this case, not a big deal because it is symmetrical, but sometimes you'll have questions where the horizontal axis might be a different scale than the vertical axis, and that's a source of a lot of mistakes. But in this case, we know that the slope is 5 and the y-intercept is negative 6. And it looks like most of these graphs have, or I think all of them have the y-intercept at negative 6. But notice the slope is positive and it's pretty steep. It's 5, right? So the only two choices, B and D, that have a positive slope are B and D are the only two choices that have a positive slope. And if you notice that B is a little bit steeper than D, so if you had to go through this quickly, you could kind of just make an estimate that B is probably the right answer. But if you didn't want to do that, you could actually just pick 2 points on the graph. So for example, if you looked at B, it's got 0, comma, well, it actually looks like it's 0, comma, negative 6, right? And then the other point that I picked will be 2, comma, 4. All right, so slope equals y2 minus y1. over x2 minus x1. And so in this case, it's just 4 minus 6, right, over 2. So we've got basically 10 over 2, which is equal to 5. So that's answer choice B. All right. But again, if you had to go through this quickly, you could kind of just see what the slope is, see what the y-intercept, see which one had the steepest slope, and you'd probably be right, but obviously better if you can do the actual calculation to confirm. Question number 9 says the table shown gives some value x and the corresponding values of f of x, where f is a linear function. If y equals f of x is graphed in the xy plane, what is the coordinate of the y-intercept of the graph? All right, so again, key thing here is linear function, right? Linear function, slope-intercept comes up a lot on the test, right? We've got -1 and -2, and we've got 2 and 4, okay? All right, so it's saying, what's the y-coordinate of the y, again, just what's the y-intercept, right? So based on the fact that we've got 2 points here, we can just get the slope, m, right, equals 4 minus -2, all right, and 2 minus -1, all right, that gives us 6 over 3, that equals 2. So now we've got y equals 2x plus b, all right, and we plug in either point. Let's plug in this point, 4 equals 2 times 2 plus b. You can see that b has to equal 0. All right, and that is what we're looking for. I mean, you could have seen this kind of if you see the trend, right? You want to figure out the value when x is 0. So between 2 and -1, right here we go down by this goes down by 3. This goes down by 6. All right. So if you wanted to figure that out, for every, let's see, for every 1, I go down in x, I go down 2 in y. So if I went down 2 here, right, to 0, I would go down 4 here, it would also be 0. All right. So if you just saw the symmetry of how this thing worked, you could do it that way. But this is always, tried and true. Just plug into the slope-intercept form and figure out what slope is, and then figure out the y-intercept by just inputting either one of the points that you have, and that'll give you the y-intercept. All right. Question number 10, it says, the equation above can be used to determine, estimate the body surface area A in square centimeters of a child with the mass m in grams, where 3,000, or m is greater than 3,000 or greater than or equal to 3,000 and less than or equal to 30,000, which of the following statements is consistent with the equation? Well, just, the way I figure these out is just plug in numbers, right? It says A equals 1,321 plus 0.3433 times m. So if I plugged in m is 0, A would equal 31321, okay? And if I increased m by 1, I would increase this number by 0.3433, okay? So for each increase of 1 gram in mass, an increase of approximately 0.3433 square, A increases by 0.3433. Makes perfect sense, okay? Just started with m is 0, it made m equal to 1, and the area increased by exactly what answer choice A said. Okay, so always just plug in numbers if the wording is confusing or the problem seems confusing, and it'll make a lot more sense. All right, in the XY, number 11, in the XY plane, you got P, Q, R, and T lie on the circle with center O. The degree measures of angle POQ and ROT are each 30 degrees. What's the radian measures of QOR? So in this case, we've got this circle, okay, and then we've got these 2 lines here, okay? So what we know right away is this is 30 degrees, right? This angle here. This is 30 degrees here, okay? I'll just draw the part of the circle. And then that means that if this is a line, this other segment here has to equal 180 degrees. So we got 30 plus 30. That means this has got to be 120 degrees. Okay, that is the angle that you're looking for, the angle POQ, right? ROQ, or QOR. This is Q, this is O, and this is R. Okay, so if I've got 120 degrees, okay, all I know to do is to convert from degrees to radians. I just multiply by pi radians, okay, over 180 degrees. All right, and then this cancels. This just becomes, if I divide 60 into this, it becomes 2. 60 in this becomes 3. So I got 2/3 pi, right? And that's in radians. And that is answer choice C. All right, number 12. 12 is, and you always got to ask yourself, what are we testing here? In this case, it looks like the difference of squares. If we look at this problem here, it says you got 4x squared over x squared minus 9 minus 2x over x plus 3 equals 1 over x minus 3. Okay, right away I noticed this is going to be the difference of squares right here, this term. So I'm going to change that to x plus 3 times x minus 3. Okay, and then I multiply every term by x plus 3 times x minus 3 to clear the denominators. I call this clearing denominators. Okay, so as long as you multiply every term by the same thing, it doesn't change the expression. So what happens in this first term, this whole thing cancels out. Okay, this cancels out, but you're left with x minus 3 in the numerator, and this cancels out, but you're left with x plus 3 in the numerator. So now I got 4x squared minus 2x squared, okay, and then I got plus 6x equals x plus 3. Now I just combine like terms, move all these expressions, this expressions on the right to the left side. I get 4x squared, right, minus 2x squared. I just combine those two. I get 2x squared. And then I bring the x over to the other side, it becomes negative x. So I got plus 5x. And then I get minus 3. All right. Then I set this equal to 0. All right. And then I want to factor it. Okay. I'll factor it up here. 2x is the first term, has to be 2x. And the other first term has to be x. And then I want two numbers that multiply to be negative 3 and add up so that the middle term is 5. Okay, in this case, I'm going to pick negative 1 and I'm going to put plus 3, right? So when I FOIL this back out, the first term is 2x squared. The outer term is 6x. The inner term is negative x, so I get 5x in the middle. And the last term is negative 3. Okay, so that I did my factoring right, and this just takes a little trial and error. But now I want to find out, it says, what's the solution? I got to set each one of these equal to 0. So 2x minus 1 equals 0. 2x equals 1. X equals 1/2. And the other expression, x plus 3 equals 0. Or x equals negative 3. Negative 3 is, well, actually, negative 3 is one of the answers, right? But we can't have negative 3 because that would make this term, first term in the denominator, 0. We can't have that. So the only expression that works here is 1/2. So the answer choice is C. All right, so that's question number 12. Maybe one of the harder questions, but nothing's really hard about the test. It's just unfamiliar, okay? Question number 13, it says a right circular cone has a volume of 1/3 pi cubic feet and a height of 9 feet. What's the radius in feet of the base of the cone? So all we want to do here is just say 1/3 pi equals 1/3 pi r squared, right? That's the volume of the cone. You can look it up on the first page of the of the test, if you forgot, if you don't have it memorized, 1/3 pi r squared h, right? And then these 1/3 pi's, they just cancel out. So I'm left with 1 equals r squared times 9, because I know h is 9. So now r squared equals 1/9. This is where it's a little tricky, right? We're not used to taking square roots of fractions, but basically we just take the square root of both sides, take the square root of the top, square root of the bottom, I get equals 1/3. Okay, so that is question number 13. Question number 14, kind of a weird looking math symbol, but it just means multiplication. We've got r to the 2/5. This is times the time symbol. Square root of r, they want to know, can you rewrite exponents? Square root of r is just r to the 1/2, right? There's a 1 assumed here, and there's a 2 assumed here if nothing's written there. And rewriting exponents, or radicals as exponents, this is what's in the numerator, and this is what's in the denominator. So I got r to the 2/5 times r to the 1/2. I just need to add those two exponents, and I get 4/10 plus 5/10 equals 9/10. All right. So it's r to the 9/10, or answer choice D. In question number 15, what I like to do is scientists tested a group of adults aged 30 to 85. The graph of the quadratic S, which models their scores in a language test, function of their age X. Which of the following could be defined as? Really what you want to do, I call these graphs to function. Just pick a point that you see. So for example, at age 55, okay, the value for the score looks like, or the y-coordinate equals 50, okay? So if we plug into B right away, we'll see that plugging in 50 makes that first expression 0, and we're left with 50. And it also works for, actually looks like it works for D as well. You would get 50. But if you look at, kind of look at the graph, okay, and notice that the graph is a kind of a parabolic shape facing downward. That negative term in front of the the expression in parentheses, that negative 1/320, would imply that the graph should be facing downward, and that's how you get answer choice B. For number 16, it says on a 210-mile trip, Cameron drove average speeds of 60 miles per hour. So we write that down. 60 miles per hour, okay, for the first X hours, all right, for the first X hours. And then he completed the trip driving average speed of 50 miles per hour for the remaining Y miles. 50 miles per hour for the remaining Y hours. This is X hours, that's hours. This is N hours, okay? And if X equals 1, what's the value of Y? So X equals 1, so he went 60 miles, right? Basically just 60 miles for this part. So I got 210 minus 60, right, equals 150, okay? And then I just divide 150 by 50, because he went 50 miles an hour, and that gives me 3 hours. Okay. All right, pretty simple, just basic rate problem. Okay, let's see what else. We are at question number 17. This is just a plug-in. It says in the equation above, what's the value of Z when W is 2? Okay, so I don't know. Some students struggle with this, but you're just plugging in numbers, right? W is 2, so I got 2Z W squared minus 3W minus 10 equals 2Z. So W is 2, I got W squared is 4. This makes this 8Z minus W is 2, 6 minus 10 equals 2Z, right? And I'm solving for Z. Just bring this to the other side, and I get 6Z. And I bring the -6 and the -10 to the other side, equals 16. Z equals 16 over 6. Got to reduce it to the lowest terms. That divide both top and bottom by 2. I get 8/3. All right, so that is the answer for number 17. Question number 18 says, which value of x satisfies the equation above? All right, so this is kind of messy. What I would suggest is, it's a no calculator section. Quickly try some perfect squares, right? Because you got to take the square root of something. So let's plug in 1, okay? So 1 minus 2 minus 3 is not equal to 0. Okay, now I'm going to try 4. Okay, so 4 minus 2 times 2, right, which is 4, minus 3 is not equal to 0. Now I'm going to try 9, right? So I'm going to say 9 minus 2. When I take the square root of 9, I get 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Minus 3 equals 0. Okay, and that does work. All right, so the answer for 18 would be 9. Not always easy to see, but again, think logically. It's a no calculator section. Try some perfect squares. If you had to do, the math, it would take quite a bit longer. But there's always multiple ways to do all these problems. So if you want to try and solve it mathematically, you can try and do that. We just don't have time to go through it, but try it at home if you want. Number 19, solution says x, y is the solution to the systems of equations above. What's the value of x? Pretty straightforward question. When we do systems of equations, it's substitution or elimination. So in this case, looks like they want the value of x. It's really easy to get rid of y. Just add the two expressions and we get 2x equals 5, or equals 5. So x equals 2.5. All right, pretty straightforward. All right, in the last question, it says k is a constant, the equation infinitely many solutions. That means that these two equations have to be the same. Infinitely many solutions means you have two equations that are the same. And I got x minus 2 equals x minus 2. So always note the symmetry, right? If I want to make these two, the left and right side, the same, 2k has to equal 1, okay? Or k equals 1/2, right? Recognizing these things will save you a tremendous amount of time, make these problems really easy, and hopefully get you a great score. So keep working at it, and I'll catch up with you during the next section. We'll go through and look at the calculator section. Have a great day.